When I started having kids, my diet began to slip, started to go downhill, and at first I wasn't really concerned too much about this. Thought, this is just sort of what happens a little bit when you have a baby. Things are tough. I can enjoy myself a little bit. But as time went on, a year passed, I was still struggling. And I was kind of confused because I thought I had this taken care of, but it seemed like just on repeat every single night I would go to the fridge. No, felt like I was hungry, but I would end up eating so much more than I know I should. And it would be causing all of these problems just the next day, mess with my sleep, just really making everything worse. Started to have less energy, started gaining weight, but no matter what I tried, I just kept failing. I just kept overeating, especially at night. And so in this video, I want to share sort of what I learned about diet, food, how it relates to dopamine, and what I learned to start making changes and start improving despite my responsibilities still increasing, despite still having stressful times and days, which we all do as fathers. And so to kind of explain this, I first want to share a little bit about dopamine because it's super important when it comes to food in our modern day. So dopamine is a neurotransmitter in our brain that basically helps us to be motivated. It gives us reward when our brain notices that we're doing something that's good, that's going to help us. And so the more dopamine that's released, the better that we feel. And it also kind of allows us to escape negative emotions, kind of turns off that negative emotion part of our brain. And so we have this sort of normal amount of dopamine flowing through our brain normally throughout the day, and when we do something, that dopamine can go up or down. And so when we do something like eat food, our brain releases more dopamine, telling us that that's good. We need food to survive. However, when we eat junk food, when we eat processed food, things with a lot of sugar, a lot of flour, our brain thinks this is amazing because that's quick energy. It's processed in a way that we digest it very fast, and so it spikes our dopamine. It gives us this quick hit that makes us feel super good. And what happens, because it uses up so much of this dopamine, we don't have an infinite supply, is afterwards we get this crash. And so that can happen very quickly. And when we're down here, when our body's trying to build back up that dopamine, we crave more of that thing. This is how all addiction works, whether it be to behaviors like pornography or gambling, to substances like drugs or alcohol, and as well to food. And so this is why when at night, after I have a piece of toast, a piece of a bagel, you might think it's harmless, or a brownie, and I tell myself I'm just going to have one bite, right? Or I'm going to have one serving. But then as soon as you're done, it's like you just need more. And that's because of this crash and because of that dopamine that our brain wants. It thinks it's really good. And so because of this spike, our brain sort of creates all of these sort of stories or excuses that kind of make us want to eat this food, even though we know it's going to cause problems the day after, even that same day in the future. Even if those problems are very severe, maybe you're overweight, it's gonna, maybe you have diabetes, maybe your health is at risk, you're paying a lot of money. Still, it's so hard because of that. These excuses our brain tells us, and it's so strong. So some of these things that popped up in my brain, which I think are important to be aware of, are things like, it doesn't matter, like things are tough right now, you deserve a break, you deserve to relax, or like, this is my only time to unwind, and so I feel like I deserve it. Or sometimes it's just out of habit, sometimes there's no thinking involved, because part of what that dopamine does, it kind of shuts off our prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that can kind of think further ahead. I've told myself, I'll start tomorrow, right? Like, it's been a rough day, but tomorrow I'm gonna stick to my plan, I'm gonna set limits, I just need to be more disciplined. And I told myself these things over and over, but still nothing changed. Maybe for a few days I was able to muster the willpower to stick to how I wanted to eat, but ultimately that dopamine spike was too much to resist. And I always listened to these excuses in my brain. Another one was like, oh, my eating habits aren't the problem right now. There's other things going on in my family, in my life. I'll take care of this later. Now, I've talked about a few of these excuses in other videos and I call them excuses because once we really examine them and have time to think about them, we realize that they're not true, right? We realize afterwards, after we eat all that food, the next day we realize the consequences are not worth it. And we're confused. Like, why did we believe that in the moment? Like, how did we decide that it was okay to eat that much of the food? And again, it's because of that dopamine spike. It just kind of takes control of our brain in that moment. So the question is, how do we combat these arguments and excuses that our mind is telling us to eat this food, eat too much of this food, that we know it's going to cause problems? And so the first step, although it sounds kind of lame, is actually just observing our mind, figuring out what's going on, what it's saying to us. And I know you want to make quick changes, and that's probably why you clicked on this video. But this sort of process of changing our diet, overcoming bad poor eating when it's in your immediate environment, is very difficult, and we can't skip steps here. So the first step, again, is just to observe. Maybe do this even for a week. Each night, when you get to the point where you normally overeat, or you eat things you know you shouldn't, try observing what's going on in your mind. Is it just a habit? Are you not even thinking? Or is your mind telling you something like, you should relax, you deserve this is your time to unwind? Whatever it is, record that, write it down, figure out what your mind is telling you. So observing this is going to do two things. So first, it's going to help you see what your mind is telling you. That's going to allow you to figure out the fallacy or the untruths going on, and you can break those down so that later when those come up, you can say, no, I know this is happening just because my mind wants to feel good right now, wants that dopamine, and it's just because of the addictive nature of the junk food. It's not actually to unwind or whatever. It's just going to cause problems for me later. Two, it's going to help you understand what your mind and body really needs. If your mind's telling you to unwind, then you can begin to find other healthier ways to unwind. As you observe this, it's also going to change it from a habit to a conscious behavior. You're going to be start to consciously still eat this food, but over time, with this new knowledge, it's going to go from an unconscious habit to a conscious behavior. And that, with time, is going to allow you to take control of this habit. Even if people in your family or your home are still eating that food, you'll start to be able to resist it as you build these systems around fighting those excuses, around meeting your true needs. That's what helped me to overcome this overeating and finally get control. Even though, I'm still a dad, I'm still having more kids, and life is still hard. But through implementing these things, through understanding how my mind works more, it's helped me to feel a lot better about how I'm eating. And so if you're needing help kind of identifying what's going on, building a plan around your habits and your eating, then I would love to chat with you, and you can click the link in the description and we can create a plan together to finally take control of this. But otherwise, if you're interested in more videos about changing these sorts of habits, especially eating at night, then please subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.